Hi, I'm Doug Weissman. I am a novelist, screenwriter, travel writer, and I currently live in the Los Angeles area. I'm the author of 9 books. I've also written a few full feature screenplays. It's all about storytelling with me. If there's a story, I'm there.
What's the content management? Do you manage other people?
I work full time and during the day for a travel company that it's kind of like a travel agent partnership. So if you want to go to a trip to Italy, specialists who work only in Italy and they're going to personalize that trip for you. So I'm the one who creates all the content originally as their senior travel writer. Recently, I was promoted to the content manager. So
You're like setting up a package so they would see like a tour? Because my cousin wanted to try to do that. He actually has a condo in Egypt. So
oh,
he knows
nice.
all the places to, and so he had a couple of his buddies come over and he actually set it all up for them to have a driver and all that because he knows that area.
So luckily, I know a lot of areas. I've been to almost 50 countries and it's awesome, but there's still so many more to service. So we have partnered with travel agents who specialize in those countries and those specific areas. Agent who specializes in Northern Europe versus Sicily, but it's all about making sure that we connect you or who you are traveling with the people who would best serve the type of trip you want, and then you personalize it. I don't like museums as much, but I love food, so maybe I'll swap out this museum tour for a food tour.
I don't like hold back punches. I do my own movies, so I really don't care. But I do want to ask you, because you are a storyteller, scriptwriter, was the tour thing like a side way of, hey, I can make money at this while I'm still trying to sell my stuff?
Yeah, 100%. Look, I'll tell you, I went to grad school for creative writing, specifically in fiction, but I had been traveling since 2006. First time I ever went out of the country, I went to Costa Rica on this heavily subsidized trip for Jewish college students. I just heard about it. It was 99 bucks. And I was like, I'm in. I don't care what I have to do for 99 bucks to Costa Rica. I am in. And then immediately, like a month later, I moved to Italy for a year. So it was kind of like all in, basically. And then traveled around Europe while I was living there. After that, went back to college, finished up, and was like, well, 2009, I graduated. And I was like, well, I got no job waiting for me. I thought about traveling after school, so I'm just going to do it. So I took a year off. So I just kept going west, Fiji and New Zealand, Australia, Southeast Asia, kept going, going, going. Came back, had a couple horrible jobs. Waiting tables, which is normal for me, waited tables a lot. But then I also sold timeshares and whatever. I was like, this is terrible and I hated soul sucking. So I went to South America for a little bit. And that's when I got accepted to grad school, went to grad school, got out of grad school. I was like, well, now what I have, I'm a novelist basically with no novels under my name. What am I going to do here? How can I make money, especially with the poor writer trope that hangs over the head of all novelists? Born and raised in LA, I never had any desire to write screenplays until moving back to LA after grad school. But even then, I was like, well, how do I break into this business? So then I went to Africa for a few months to travel. So all of this under my belt is how I got into the travel writing space. And that's where I connected with this company. I've been working with them since 2013, basically. First as freelance, then brought on full time. But while I was doing that, I published 9 novels since first 2016 up till now. Business videos with my brother-in-law for a few years, and him and I were the ones that started making movies together because he was a huge movie buff and already had inroads in there with independent film and whatnot. What I fell in love with, the story aspect.
That's why I'm doing this because I'm like you. I just love stories. I write the books, or at least I try to. I write the scripts. I make the movies, anything. And this is my side job that doesn't pay. But the podcast, hey, I'm a filmmaker first, but I can network this way. But I did want to ask you because I know personally, I didn't think it would be that hard. Have you ever tried to turn one of your novels into a screenplay? Because that is not easy. I tried to turn one of my books back into a script, and you figure you're the guy that wrote it,
Yep.
but vice versa, it doesn't matter. It's like two different entities, you
Yep.
know?
Let me tell you, I completely agree. 100%. I've done it both ways, actually. I've taken a novel and tried to turn it into a screenplay. And then I also took a screenplay and tried to turn it into a novel. And they both didn't work for different reasons.
Yeah. I found the only way that I could actually do it is like if I had a movie that I redid screenplay wise, I just basically watch the movie and just throw everything away and then try to write the book as what
Yep.
the images are. If you try to be, locked in and say, hey, I don't want to take this out or that out, you're screwed. It's like,
Yeah.
it's hell.
That's where I've found that in those instances, it's so good to have somebody else write the screenplay of your novel because that way it's like doing a totally different project, but it has elements of your project at the same time. You're no longer saying, well, I need to fit in all 150 plot points that are in the
Right.
novel.
So have you been successful with getting your novels into movies or
Oh man, not yet. I'm super keen on it though. So my latest novel is about a female serial killer in World War II Paris, and it just begs. And everybody I know who reads it just wants it to be a limited series because and that's what I thought it would translate very well to. 8 to 10 episodes, historical fiction, serial killer vibes, World War II Paris. It has all these elements of success, and the characters are all there. The character development's all there. So all you really need is point a camera and shoot. It's ready to go.
did you ever try to like do like little scenes from it? I know everybody's into like the pitch deck thing, and between me and you, I think it's like crap. It's like lying saying I'm gonna get this big actor and this one that. But I still believe in like doing like a scene from something to actually have that as a promotion saying this is what it would look like, with
Yeah.
different actors, but just visually to try to get the funding. But
You are 100% right. I completely agree with you on everything that you just said. I have not done it yet, mostly because the timeline of
right.
the book, right? Or the time frame. Where could I go to do it? Well, if I'm not actually in Paris, Montreal would be exceptionally great to just film because Montreal often doubles for Paris because it's kind of the most European-esque city in North America.
Yeah.
But I'm not anywhere close to Montreal. So like to go up there to be able to do it or to figure out how I can
Well,
how
here's the thing. Here's the thing. You got to remember, that's what I think people want it so good that where they like, oh, I did this, and if we do it, we could just add that in there. You could pretty much green screen the actors into pictures. It's just visually something to market. I mean, it's just like when actors go for video auditions. The casting director's got to look at them, not that they're doing it in their living room. You know what I mean? They're
point.
they have to picture them, take them out of that, and picture, oh, if I put them in, Paris in the 40s, they have to have some creative because if they don't, guess what? You ain't getting the money from them anyway because they're not creative enough to see your vision.
Well, isn't that the big disconnect between creatives and the money, or at
I,
least in theory?
I never found the money, man. I wouldn't know even where to begin to talk about that. I did have a doctor that actually bought me a camera and just said, "Hey, go do some movies and put my name on it as executive producer." That was still a highlight because he was
Yeah.
off hands and he was like, Jimmy, I know whatever you do, you'll finish, just go. And because I'm busy with my practice and I can't do the movies the way I want to, so at least I get my name out there.
That's so cool. And I also love the fact that he knew you would finish. I think that's the biggest thing when I talk to writers, whether they're in, doing novels, doing short story collections, doing screenplays, it's always, I don't know how to finish. I'm stuck in the middle. Or, I mean, the
Yeah.
biggest thing is being able to finish your project and having that sense of accomplishment, even in that one aspect. So many people just, oh, I'm halfway through, but now I have this other great idea. I'm just going to jump to that.
I
And
do
they,
that too, but I think my secret, to be honest, is I don't really know what any of it looks like. Everybody has like, oh, the vision. Even when I'm writing scripts, I write them and the dialogue just goes back and forth. And when I edit it, I actually don't have a vision until I see it done.
yeah.
Because, if you did, you're never going to live up to it.
Oh, yeah.
And
Well,
that's what hurts to people is, oh, I don't know how to get it to this point. And that's what stops them. It doesn't stop me. Like I said, I've done 160 movies, countless scripts and all that because I just jump in and finish it. It doesn't matter if it's a rough one, even, and especially for me with scripts. Okay, it's a rough script. I'll fix it when I film it.
yeah.
You know,
Oh, that's great. That's
you
great. See,
know.
I'm the other way. I have the exact vision in my head, but I am also not so precious that when I hand it over to somebody else, I know it's going to change. And that's all right. Because what I do is I put down exactly what I want it to be like or how I perceive it, whether it's a
Right.
screenplay or a novel. And if I'm not conveying that on the page, that's my fault, right?
Yeah.
So everything that comes out of that basically is supposed to translate to the next person. And then they're going to have their own image of what it is, no matter. And that I learned that with my books, right? Is I can't sit there whispering in your ear exactly what my intention is. So if it's not on the page, then it's supposed to be up for debate, right? You're
That's
supposed to
right.
put your own spin on it. So I'm like, all right, I have my idea. I love my idea. This is what got me through the project is being attached to that idea. Now I give it over to you. Let's see what you do with it.
Have you ever sat on, that's the one thing that like kind of tears me in the heart to see creative people like sit on their project because they're so scared that somebody's going to steal it that they never show anybody. And
Oh,
I just don't understand it. I
yeah.
mean,
I'm the opposite. I share my ideas with everybody because I know it's going to be different. Like I often run this because I teach creative writing at Southern New Hampshire University as well. One of the things I always tell students is like, if you gave Stephen King, Haruki Murakami, and Catherine Dunn the same concept of like a 16-year-old boy with a totem pole write a story. They're all going to write something completely different. And that's the thing, is back to that perception, is if we had the same idea, it's going to come out completely different, even if it's based on the same concept.
The more I make, the more chances I have somebody to like something.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel like you expand outside of a particular pigeonhole? And I say that because as writers, whether it's screenplay or novels, it's always like, oh, you write, young adult dystopian. So the next book needs to be young adult dystopian because that's how we market you as your brand, right? It's like, no, but I don't do that. Like, I want to write the stories I want to write. I don't want to be stuck in one.
Yeah, no, I do everything from
Yeah.
children's books to you name it, I'll write it, and I don't fall under a category. But
Yeah.
that also is a category of, we can't market you. You
Every time they're so desperate to market, and I get it. Marketing's like that's one of my biggest things is, when I finish a book, I immediately need to move on to the next book because my creative thinking goes that way. I have to be working on something all the time. But at the same time, I need to market the other book so people find it because there's something ridiculous. It's like, forget if it's one or 10,000 are published a day. So if I'm not out there like slinging my name, it's never going to get found by one person, let alone 1,000 people. Still working on the creative project, not to mention writing a screenplay when I'm interested in this project. I have a friend who's like, "Oh, I really love what you did here. I really want to collaborate with you on this screenplay." I'm, cool. And then I'm like, "Well, when the hell am I going to work on this thing when I also have this thing that I'm marketing and this thing that I'm working on and the day job to make money so I can afford to do these other things?" So it's, yeah. And then so it's like waiting, and then you want me to wait? I'm not gonna wait. No.
Yeah, I got 4 movies that I'm editing and post. And when I announced to do the second versions of these podcasts, like 15 people jumped on board, including yourself. But each one of these I have to edit. So it does add up. Even a children's book that was only 20 pages took me 6 months going back and forth with the illustrator. How
Hmm.
long the process is, doesn't matter whether you're doing music, whether you're doing a movie, whether you're doing a book. It's an enormous amount of time out of our lives. But the one thing that really I'm not good at is marketing. I don't think I ever will be because I tell people, but people don't believe me. I'm like the shyest person you ever meet. But when I'm filming, I'm God. There's nobody above me, and I'll fire Spielberg in the spot if he's in my way. That's just how it is, and everybody knows that. But it's like I like that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I like the guy that take on anything. If I don't know right now, I'm not sure I got a composer for these movies. So guess what? I got to do the music. And it doesn't matter. Mine is just whatever the challenge is, I'll do it. This is who we are. We're all just trying to create something.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is a network that you need and you need to create, especially like coming from the writer world, coming from that connection. If I have my first look at a book that I'm finally ready to show somebody, I'm not going to send that out to an editor first or an agent first. I need to send it to a writer and a storyteller who's going to look at it and say, I'm missing the connection between X and Y here, or these characters aren't fully fleshed out. Because how often have you, as a storyteller, looked at one of your films and been like, I'm connecting these dots in my head, but I didn't actually connect it in the film, or I didn't connect it on the page.
Well, I mean, I misspell a lot of stuff to where the actors come and they're like, look, none of this makes sense, but we figured you're going to tell us when we're filming because it makes sense to me, but not to
Yeah.
them.
It's a hell of a lot harder to get competitive with a novel than with a short story. Example, when I was in grad school, there was poetry track, the short story track, the novel track. When you had novelists, usually everybody's sharing a chapter or two, maybe three, depending on how short the chapters were every week. But you're not really able to compete because your story is going to be completely different. Everybody comes in with a different perspective, not even competing, but you're absorbing things that you like from what other people are doing. Oh, I really like the way they use this metaphor.
I come up with 5 different stories a day. I can't stop them. And if I read yours, I don't want to filter in down the road an idea from you. So it's better I'm sorry, it's just better for me not to read it because like a year from now, your idea might be working into a story that I'm playing, and then you're going to come back and say I stole it.
Oh, I'm the
I'm not
opposite.
trying to be disrespectful to these people. It's just I'm trying to be honest.
Oh, no, honesty is the best, but I am honest in the same way, but with the acceptance of that, right? So I'm going to say that idea of Picasso, great artists steal, right? I'm going to steal an idea from you, but when I steal it, I will make it my own into something completely different. And here's a perfect example of that. I wrote a novel called Life Between Seconds. And it's about the relationship, the friendship between a 25-year-old American guy and a 74-year-old Argentinian woman, and how kind of their traumas affect the friendship and whether they're going to kind of run away or embrace it. But one of the things I stole was from Goonies, right? There's this moment in Goonies, the movie. I'm sure you've seen it. It's an
Yes.
American classic. Yeah. There's this moment where they're down on the bottom of the well. He finds coins and he's sitting there and be like, this is my wish, my dream, and now I'm taking them back. Right.
Right.
Iconic. I mean, it sends shivers down my spine whenever I think about it. So I took that moment, and my one of my protagonists, Sophia, rather than being in a well or stealing coins, she's in a church. And she lost her daughter to the government, disappeared her daughter in the Dirty War during the 70s and 80s. And so she's in the church, and rather than stealing coins, she starts snuffing out all the votive candles, saying, this was my prayer that didn't come true. So now nobody gets a prayer. I'm taking my prayer back, and I'm taking everybody's with me. That's that idea of taking somebody else's concept, idea, theme, moment, but you make it your own. And then it is totally different from where you originally got the idea from.
'Cause none of us really know. I mean, I don't want to go into the supernatural bit, but no, this is a true story. It's actually on one of my ghost stories. But I was pacing back and forth at work because I was writing something, and I turned around too quick, and I swear there was an old guy pacing with me. Sort of like in Always, that movie, to where Richard Dreyfuss as a ghost had to, help the next person.
Yeah.
And I was like, I saw you, and he kind of like disappeared. But it seemed like, maybe he's giving me the idea. I'm
Maybe.
not sure,
Yeah.
but we never know where the ideas come from.
I don't question where they come from. I don't care as long as
Yeah.
they're coming.
I do question where the songs come from because I never got into songwriting yet, but
Mm.
I could just be walking around and then there'd be like song lyrics popping in. And I was like, I make movies, I write scripts, I write books. I can't do everything. But it's
Oh,
like somebody's
your brain
trying
wants
saying,
to.
yes, you can.
Yeah. Well, it's like, what is this song but another story, right? And then if you
So,
go back, and I mean way back to kind of the beginning of civilization and humanity, how did we share stories, but we sang them to each other in order for us to remember them? So this is just your way of your mind saying, let's just add another story into the mix.
yeah, I think it's like I said with the podcast. The funniest thing about the podcast is I just finished a movie called Blacklist, which was kind of like a spoof on some of the things that have happened to me over the years of filming, But I exaggerated some of them. But there's a lot of crazy stories when you make movies. But in the movie, I make fun of a filmmaker because he turns to be a podcaster, and I call him basically a sellout, right? So I'm watching the movie, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm doing the same thing. It is the most art imitates life moment that I'm like, I wrote that, but I'm doing that.
Yep.
I'm that guy.
Followed your own anti-advice.
I know. Wait a minute. But like I said, the ideas they come and later on, depending on when we bring them in, make the books, make the stuff.
Yeah.
They're like realization of just who we're trying to grow into. That would be the
Dude,
best.
that nails it. That nails it. I mean, I used to tell people that I was the only person living in LA who didn't want to write screenplays because I was born and raised in LA. And I was like, nope, never gonna do it. Never want to do it. Don't need to do it. But then it just hit me one day. I was talking with my brother-in-law. He was actually talking about Indiana Jones 4 and what directors had come forward and said, oh, I would direct that. And we were actually going to see something called Pulp Shakespeare in a small theater in LA, which somebody had taken Pulp Fiction but put it in Shakespearean dialect and Shakespearean England. So it was awesome. I mean, super cool. But I thought that my brother-in-law said Quentin Tarantino had come forward to do a rendition of Indiana Jones 4. I misheard him, but I thought that was such an interesting idea that I went home that night after watching Pulp Shakespeare and wrote a Tarantino introduction to Indiana Jones 4, right? Or just to Indiana Jones. Like, what would it look like if Quentin Tarantino wrote an Indiana Jones movie? And that was the start of maybe I do want to write movies just
Yeah.
because of this one thing. And it did spin out. That was one of those things I made it into a entire separate screenplay, full feature that me and my brother were like, we gotta try and do this. But then when I wasn't getting traction on it as a screenplay, I was like, well, let me translate this back into a novel because I know novels. And that was the first time I was like, oh, this doesn't work. I gotta
Yeah, I totally understand that one. I mean, it's like I just kept walking away and like maybe if I just watched the movie, or maybe if I write it off the movie, or maybe, and I was like, none of this is working. It's two different versions, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I got an agent really excited about the novel, but with the same pitch that I had for the screenplay, which was just Tarantino writes Indiana Jones meets Casablanca, right? And they were like super cool, send it my way. But then what happens is even the first, say, I would say maybe 5 to 10 pages of the novel is feels like the first 2 minutes of a movie where you're kind of introducing the space and scenario and you're winding in. So it just feels like I'm zooming in and getting a sense of the setting as opposed to actually connected to character. And it's like, oh, well, I know exactly what I did wrong, but how am I going to translate this into the novel to get the character aspect that you can't get, right? Because I set the scene here, but I need the characters here. But it's now it's just a matter of dedicating the time.
The time is so that's what I screw up mostly. I had one lady call me up from Australia. She watched Real Cupid and she was like, Jimmy, we're a publisher. We would love this as a short book. And but
Mm.
I was doing so many projects. And I finally did get it done. But by the time I sent it to her, she don't work there anymore. You know, I've had a lot of different situations like that to where somebody wanted something and I'll do whatever they want. But with all the other projects going on, by the time I get back to them, they're not there anymore.
Let me tell you the flip side of that, because I am the flip side, where if somebody came to me and is like, I love this, I need a short version of it, I'm like, done. I'll do it immediately. I'll put everything else on the back burner, but I'll move so fast that I don't focus on the quality because I'm like, this person wants it. But then when I send it to them, it's not the quality it needs to be because I tried to do it too quickly. And so that's happening. Just so you know, there is an opposite side to that same coin.
So what you got coming up?
Yeah, well, I'm still promoting Girl in the Ashes, which is my female serial killer in World War II Paris. Still trying to motivate people to get on board with that and move it forward to a limited series. I'm also currently writing a novel version of kind of a fantasy climate fiction book that takes place in a unique spatial situation where someone's trying to fix the world with rainbows.
There you go. Well, like I said, always check out my other ones because I did one with a designer that designs the book covers and all that. I did a comic book writer, producers, screenwriters. There's always connections that you can
Oh,
make.
yeah.
It's all who you know, but it's the same thing for you guys is there could be other people that I interview
Yeah.
and try to put you guys together, you know.
100%. Well, if anybody's interested in a Tarantino Indiana Jones Fest or Casino in Space, I got those screenplays already written.
The casino in space sounds really cool, man. But I appreciate your time, man. You have a good
Oh,
day.
no, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.